Tell me if this has happened to you or someone you might know. Help! I don't know what to do. The guy I hired to file my application is not calling me back.
Hi there, this is Mr. Veazey with Veazey, Visas Made Easy, an immigration law firm with offices in Orlando and Tampa. And these are the 5 signs that your application can be headed for trouble with USCIS or the U.S. Embassy. Now, these issues have nothing to do with the merits of your case or the evidence that you submitted, and because this applies to attorneys and immigration filing services, we're just going to call everybody a preparer just for simplicity. Sign number 5 is, your preparer takes very little interest in your background. If your preparer hasn't sent you a questionnaire or has sat you down to interview you to try to elicit as much valuable information as possible, that is a red flag. The preparer who sits down with you and learns about your background and sees all possibilities to try to strengthen your application or find new pathways to obtain evidence for your application, that is the kind of preparer that you should be looking for, somebody proficient and knowledgeable about your story. Sign number 4, the preparer does not explain the basis of the plan to you as the client. This basically means that the preparer did not explain why you qualify for an immigration benefit. And if the preparer's plan is to simply file the application and wait for a decision, or perhaps only give you a copy of the petition or application right before an interview or a hearing, that is also a red flag. Not understanding why you qualify does put you in a vulnerable position. Because if you don't understand the basis of your application and how your evidence works, what are you going to do when this next problem happens to you? Sign number 3 is, the preparer does not call you back. You keep leaving emails, texts, messages with the preparer and his or her staff, and nobody's getting back to you. This is the fastest way to lose the trust and confidence of your client, even before a decision is made with USCIS or the U.S. Embassy. Failing to contact you back could be a business decision, especially when there's no news to share and time is limited and perhaps preparers want to just move on to the next client. However, if that's how the preparer wanted to work, hopefully they notified you in writing or in person, which leads to this next sign. Sign number 2. There is no contract between you and the preparer discussing the policies and responsibilities owed to you. Look, I get it. Most people get nervous reading a contract, and you might be happy that your preparer didn't send one for you to read and sign. But that basically means that preparer can do whatever they want with your application. Maybe they can choose not to speak to you during the preparation of that application. Perhaps just collect your signature and fees and file an application with the least amount of effort applied. A contract of at least 2 pages would indicate to me that the preparer has a system in place to cover all unforeseen questions, or at least most of them. For example, if in the contract it says that appointments are required before you can speak to somebody, at least you will have known ahead of time. In a contract, you're also going to be able to see the policies and procedures for what happens when you're not happy with the service that you've been provided so far. And the number 1 sign that your application is headed for trouble is not working with an immigration attorney. These are your tax preparers, notaries, independent paralegals, sometimes accountants, maybe even your family or friends. If they discuss the law and how it applies to your personal situation, they're not supposed to be doing that. And I understand why they're there and why they offer these services. Attorneys can be expensive, but you have to remember at the end of the day that these people do not have to file a Form G-28, which is the form necessary to indicate to USCIS or the embassy that you have legal representation. So basically, they don't have to risk anything by filing this application since they are not the professional on record. They actually might not even put their name at all as the preparer. So you have to be careful with that. I've heard all kinds of horror stories from clients over the years. Some range from not having a contract that dictates how they're going to work together in preparing the application. Others involve, never getting a call back after submitting their first payment or a deposit. In worse scenarios is they'll take the whole payment and basically close up shop and disappear, knowing that you're not really in a position to do anything about it. And probably the worst position to be in is submitting your payment and then having the application sent in by this preparer without your review or without your consultation, without your comments or questions, and then they never call you back. And so losing your payment is bad, but submitting a horrible, terrible application to USCIS is far worse because you are risking any future benefits that you might be able to qualify for with immigration. I hope these 5 signs give you an indication about what it's like to work with people that are not attorneys or immigration attorneys, to be more specific, on your case. People can get hurt that way. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us on WhatsApp. We're also available on socials just by looking up Veazey. The Visas Made Easy. I'm Mr. Veazey, and I hope you have a great weekend.